Well, hello everybody. As the title says, I'm going to be making an apple skillet cake, which I've never done before. So let's hope it turns out. I've just recently been given a gift of a bottle of boiled cider. I have never had it before. I have seen it advertised in catalogs like King Arthur's flower catalog and things like that in the U.S. It's a New England thing. It's made from apple cider that has been rendered down. It says boiled, but also on the description of it on the label there it says evaporated. So it probably is used the reverse osmosis thing, the same as they use when they make maple syrup now. Maple syrup isn't boiled in most places anymore. They just evaporate the water out of it. Anyway, I have tasted it, and it is delicious, and I'm anxious to see what it's like in this apple skillet cake. First, we're going to prepare the apples, and I have the ingredients lined up there, I guess, for the apples. I'm going to be quoting this probably mostly in metric, but the recipe is from King Arthur Flour's website, and I'll put the link below. You can use either volume measure like cups and spoons and all that sort of thing, or pounds and ounces, or metric. So I printed the recipe out in metric for my use. There's 71 grams, I think I've actually got 72 or 3 grams there, of brown sugar, 43 grams of the boiled cider, a teaspoon of apple pie spice or your favorite combination of sweet spices. Well, I'm going to use nutmeg, and I have a whole nutmeg there that I'll be grating. I like a nutmeg with apple. I know cinnamon is probably more common, but I've always liked nutmeg. I guess it's because that's what I grew up with. A quarter teaspoon of salt, and 4 or 5 large tart green apples such as Granny Smith. Well, I'm using apples off of my pumpkin sweet apple tree again. They're not perfect because I don't spray with anything, but they don't have any, worms or anything like that in them. Some spots on them, but they're going to be peeled anyway, and those are the apples that I've decided to use. So let's get started on preparing the apples. As you can see, I'm using more than the 4 or 5 apples because it said large apples like Granny Smith, and mine aren't that large, so I'm going to go with a few more. I'm using my fancy apple peeler, corer, slicer. It does everything in one motion here. I have it attached to this plate. It works on a suction cup, but it won't fasten itself to anything wooden, anything porous like that. So, the hens love getting these apple peeling curlicues and the cores. Just break the top piece off because it usually has a bit of the peeling left, and so does the bottom piece. And it's in a spiral. You can see that. Quite interesting the way it does it. It always fascinates me. Not that expensive either, and I've used it for many years. One slice down through and you have apple slices ready to go. So I'll bring you back when I've finished peeling the apples. Well, there's the apples all sliced up. There's one thing about these pumpkin sweet apples that I've always noticed. They go brown very quickly once they're sliced. I don't know. My theory is because they are a tart apple and they have quite a bit of pectin in them, but whether that's true or not, I don't know. They're very good for cooking apples anyway. Now the ingredients that go in with the apples is the quarter teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of seasoning. As I said, I'm going to use nutmeg, and probably not a full teaspoon of it, but I do like the flavor of nutmeg with apples. So you could also add nutmeg and cinnamon together. I like to taste the nutmeg by itself. And the brown sugar. boiled cider. This just gets mixed up and set aside while you're preparing the batter. I don't think I've said it. Of course, it is a skillet cake. It's going to be cooked in a skillet in the oven. A 9 or 10 inch cast iron skillet is recommended. I measured mine. Maze, it's 10 inches, so I have what they're talking about, I guess. It also said you could use a regular baking dish, you know, Pyrex baking dish or whatever if you didn't have a cast iron skillet. Well, I think that's fairly well mixed in. A little bit of salt and sugar will probably soften the apples and draw out some of their juice to get mixed in with the boiled cider. I tasted the boiled cider. I really like the flavor of it. It also says that it's good on like ice cream or on yogurt. I'll have to give that a try. Now let's get the ingredients ready for the batter. I've got the ingredients ready for the batter. 163 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. Of course, the recipe is recommending King Arthur because it's from King Arthur website. 99 grams of granulated sugar. King Arthur is very exact, evidently. I think I probably have 100 grams there. Not that it'll make any great difference. A teaspoon and a half of baking powder and a half teaspoon of salt, and they're both in this little dish. 152 grams of warm milk. That's 3/4 of a cup of warm milk. 1 large egg. My eggs are not large, so I'm using 2. 85 grams of melted butter and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And coarse sparkling sugar to sprinkle on the top, which is optional. Good thing it's optional because I don't have any. If I remember, I may sprinkle some regular sugar on the top when I get it in the pan. But let's put these things together. First you combine the flour, the sugar, the baking powder, and the salt. Mix those together. And the wet ingredients get combined in another bowl there. The warm milk, the melted butter, the vanilla, and what is supposed to be 1 large egg, and as I said, I'm using 2. Because mine are small. My hens are laying small eggs all of a sudden. Some of them are getting quite old, maybe that's why. Now, just whisk this together. And add the dry mixture. Stir until you have a batter. I guess that's the idea. That gets added to the skillet, which I have prepared by buttering it. And the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. Sorry for the noise, me banging drawers too here. waste any of it. I guess I've got most of it. That just gets evenly distributed over the bottom of the pan. And now you add the apples back. And they did produce quite a bit of juice in the bottom here, which I'm going to add. Didn't specifically say to do that, but that's where all the good flavor is. Just evenly distribute the, well, not evenly after what I'm going to say here. You put apples all over the surface, but it says to put more along the edges. So that's what I'm going to do. Put more apples along the edges. And bring me back after I have got the apples all distributed here. There it is, ready to go in the 350-degree oven, and it bakes for 50 minutes to an hour. The batter will come up through the apples, evidently, and you test it with a cake tester. If it comes out dry, it's ready to come out of the oven type thing, like with almost any other kind of a cake. So I'll show you what it looks like when it comes back out of the oven. There it is out of the oven. I did use the cake tester in several areas and it came out dry, so I guess the cake down below the apples is done. It didn't come up through. Maybe I've used more apples than they did. Don't know if you can see that on my printout there or not. But they show it with more of the batter coming up through the apples, but nevertheless I think it's going to be good. I have to let it cool before I can cut it, and I'm going to whip some cream to go with it, but I'll bring you back when I'm ready to try a slice of this in the dining room. I don't know if you can hear me above the mixer or not. I'm just whipping a little cream to go with the apple cake. I add just a little sugar, not a lot. So I thought, instead, I usually add vanilla. I thought instead of adding vanilla, I would add some of the boiled syrup for flavoring. It's almost cooled, but I can almost ready to cut. So I'll be trying it in just a minute or two here. Well, it's still warm, but I'm going to see if I can get a slice out of the pan here. So I'll loosen it around the edges a bit. Hopefully it isn't all stuck. Are moving around on the surface. Thought maybe a spatula might get it out of there better. We'll see. Too bad. Came out anyway. It wasn't stuck to the bottom. Now, serving suggestions are with whipped cream. Don't know if I'm on screen here or not, if you can see what I'm doing, but there's the whipped cream. And dusted with icing sugar. So I will meet you in the dining room. Well, try to get a little of the cream, I guess, with this. Here I go, talking with my mouth full again, I'm sure, but That is very good. Definitely something I would make again. Lovely flavor to the cake part and the apples. And I can really taste the boiled cider in the whipped cream. That was an afterthought, but that turned out to be a good idea too. Well, I won't make you watch me eat the entire slice here. That is excellent. I think I have some friends coming to visit sometime this weekend, so hopefully I won't eat it all before they get here. I was thinking, if you can't get boiled cider wherever you might be in the world, I think you could substitute anything else that you like for flavoring in there. Any couple of tablespoons of some, I wouldn't put 2 tablespoons of vanilla, I don't think that would be too strong, but you could add a little bit of vanilla or something extra for flavoring, and you could still make the pie, but or the cake, whatever you want to call it. But the boiled cider is excellent. I have many more things that I can try to use with it. I'm looking forward to finishing up the bottle. Probably won't take me too long at all. Well, thank you very much for watching.